How about Ohio? Well, back in 2010, we still had the #1 worst air in the country, but we are now #3 after Texas and Louisiana. We put out, but remember their size too, so we're putting out a lot. Annual emissions are huge, and the American Electric Power is the largest electricity generating company in the country, and so the two kind of go hand in hand. And we also have First Energy and Dominion and all sorts of different energy producing. Usually you'll see this kind of table where the colors indicate that the health of the air. And so just remember, red is bad and green is good. And let's move on. So here's the national perspective and Ohio. It was #1 for many years, but now she's #3, and that's after Texas and Louisiana. As for water, we're way down at 10. Indiana, that's interesting. Indiana, and then tied for second is Texas, Louisiana, and Alabama, and Virginia. Water emissions, on land it's Texas, Alaska, Nevada, Utah, Arizona. A lot of that is mining, and then we're 14th. And deep water injection, that's a new one because of fracking and trying to get gas and oil out of many older wells, putting water in there. And it also creates a lot of water, aqueous wastewater. So #1 is shared by Ohio, Texas, Louisiana, Florida. Texas, Louisiana, and Ohio are doing a lot of the fracking. Okay. Let's look at some nice things. A principal reason, though, that for reduced deposits in the Northeast, look at this. This is 1989 to 91. They do it in 3-year tracks. So this red is bad. This is wet sulfates hanging on the ground. And look at this beautiful green color in 2010 to 2012. And the principal reason is because of our lowering our emissions in the Ohio Valley. Okay. Now we've got nitrogen. So here is nitrogen NOx deposits, okay, or nitrates, NOx. And now this one, not as great as the sulfates and the deposits, but still awfully darn good. The NOx, remember, is coming not only from stationary sites such as coal-burning power plants, but also from cars. So it's not as easy to control. And how's CARE doing? CARE said we've got to get down the amounts of ozone and PM 2.5 in the atmosphere, and we're going to do it by targeting certain states that produce SO2 and NOx. Okay, so what's the story? So instead of green, we've got blue, which is very relaxing and just fine with me. And now look at this, down greater than 20%, no red, and just a glorious sight here of reduction in 1-hour ozone concentrations. During ozone season is primarily warm temperatures because the production of ozone with NOx and VOCs demands strong input from the sun, energy from the sun. They call it a photochemical, in fact, because of the energy that's coming down. And of course, we get more during the warm season of summer. Now, the PM is not going down as well, but it is still pretty, it's hard because you've got to be conscious of what your graph is over here. It also would look awfully exciting if we had the graph from 16 to 10, say, but that would be kind of cheating. So they'll show the graph going down from about 15, and that is in micrograms per cubic meter, which is a volume unit. It is related to parts per million, but you don't need to worry about that. And down to less than 10. Okay. How about the toxic release inventory? And you can find this on the EPA website for Ohio. This is for Ohio counties. And I don't know if you can find your county on here if you're from Ohio, but there are the top counties for releases. And we're doing pretty well right in the middle. Okay. And you can also, they also monitor what it is, what the companies are, and what the heck they're putting out, most of which we've never even heard of. But luckily the EPA is watching out for us. Now, I just compared two different counties. One is called Clallam County, and that is in Washington State, in the very west part. This is where the twilight vampires reside. Probably very few of you know what I'm talking about, but it is just got forest and not much else. They log a lot there. And then we've got Franklin County, and the measurement shows a lot more red. And these are air and water releases, cancer, non-cancer, just a different way of looking at it. Okay, so I hope you've gotten the impression and the understanding that the quality of the air is incredibly better than it was back in 1970. The amount of emissions is reduced, and that's the reason why. Well, despite the great progress, though, in air quality, approximately 142 million people, remember we've got about 302 million, I believe, nationwide. So almost half live in counties with pollution levels above the primary standards in 2012. And what are they considered? The biggest one's going to be ozone, and then again PM 2.5. And these are both going to be concentrated around cities. So what does the EPA want to do about this? Again, they continue with their CAIR Act and working. And you've got to appreciate that this is a big deal. Here is particle matter 2.5. There's 7 microns per cubic meter. And here's 100 microns per cubic meter. That's 1 month apart in Salt Lake City. And Salt Lake City, I believe, is in a bowl. So it really, when everything that's produced there stays there, and they're very dependent upon weather systems to clean their air. Let's look at international now. Positively, we've got Mexico City, which literally the children used to use brown crayons to draw pictures of the sky and birds drop dead. But they have really enacted tough environmental standards, curb driving, and for example, they used to have leaded gasoline. Oh, I cannot remember what year they stopped, but it was in the early 90s. They also had no catalytic converters. All that's turned around, and 20 million residents. That's a huge number. And the sulfur dioxide, lead is down 95, there's the gasoline. Sulfur dioxide down 86%, that is controls at coal burning power plants. CO down 74%, that is from catalytic converters. I like this. It's important to show it can be done. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the conditions primarily in China. They bypassed the United States a long time ago in their production of SO2. Not per person, of course, but overall SO2. It is due to its industrial and urban growth, huge amounts of energy, almost all from coal, and almost all from crappy coal. Crappy coal, good. meaning high sulfur, high impurities, brown coal. Pollution has made cancer China's leading cause of death. As last one I checked was 2012, it was true. 2013. But it also has aggressively targeted reducing it, and it went down 19% in its last 5-year target. The premier has declared a war on pollution, but realistically, they're thinking it's going to be 16 years before Beijing has healthy air. And the growth is number 1 priority. They now have what akin to an EPA, founded in 2007. And remember that we had dire conditions like this in the 50s and 60s in our urban centers, but nothing compares to the industrial and urban growth of China. Oh my, this is during daylight hours. This occurred in January 2013, and this was the worst they had on record. To give you an idea of its numbers, it went as high as 900 micrograms per cubic meter. The same day, New York City, which does not have great air, was 19. The standard, according to World Health Organization, that's not the EPA, is 20. And excuse me. So this was absolutely out of this world. So they think this cuts about 5 years off of the lifespan of a resident of Beijing, the city, and the public is demanding action. They did introduce, as I said, stricter air pollution standards, and the attention has changed or has been refocused towards it. And before we get our high horse, we remember that this is the kind of we also have gone through this period, but the problem now is it's on steroids, going so fast that the call to action can't wait 20 years like it did for us. How about indoor? No place to hide. You got all these wonderful things outgassing and mixing it up. Hopefully you're not dealing with many of these items, but mostly they're volatile organic compounds. You can get up to 1,000 substances very easily at parts per billion level or higher. And of course, now that we've tightened up our buildings to save on energy, we often hear about, at least commercial buildings, having sick building syndrome because they can't open the windows. And they really don't cycle the air as often as they might, because they don't want to have to heat it every time once they mix it up with the outdoor air. It costs a lot of money to heat it back up before you pump it back into the rooms. And so it is going to build. But it is nice to throw a window open once in a while.